Welcome back everybody. Today I'll be reviewing the FDM printer from Sunlu S9 Plus. This is a large-ish FDM 3D printer. You can see here the package's size. The build volume is 310 by 310 by 400 millimeters. And the printer dimensions you can see there at the bottom as well. So as you can expect, the box is quite big. Almost filled the entire area of my table here. And I'm going to be unboxing that in front of you so you know exactly what to expect when you buy and purchase yours. I'm going to be showing also a few tips on how to assemble that to get very nice, decent quality prints. So the first layer here in the box, you will find all the parts. These two little bags here contain some of the usual instructions, some accessories, and obviously all the hardware to mount your printer, so we're going to be checking that later. This printer also comes with a filament dryer. We'll be checking on how to use that later on as well, so that's a very nice feature from this one. So there you go, standard size filament dryer for a single roll. I'm just gonna put this aside, this other level of foam here. And that unveils the main gantry of the printer, which is the only part you need to assemble. It seems to be stuck here, so we'll leave that for later on. I'll remove the whole package. And these are the diagonal rods to give a little bit more stability, as the height of the printer is quite high. It's extruded aluminum, very good. And as usual, a sample of filament. This seems to be PLA. It is a very nice little roll, so we're gonna give this a go later on. Right, so you see, removing the whole box, the gantry is fixed with zip ties, so we need to cut that, which is a very nice, neat packaging. So I think it's necessary due to the size and shipping and transporting. So everything is pretty much fixed here and not gonna get any damage. So very simply, just get a pair of snippers and cut the tie wraps out. There are 3 also on the other side, which I've already removed. And once you take them out, you should have the gantry free. I'm just gonna need my both hands to get these upright. Once you get it out of the foam and put it upright, you will see a vertical bracket there and 2 holes in the horizontal gantry, you see there. So these are pretty much the bolts that you will need to fasten and make sure everything is assembled. It's pretty straightforward, but I will share a few tips to make sure everything is nice and squared so you have good quality prints. So what I usually like to do in any FDM printer that I get is make sure everything is squared. You don't really trust the build quality. So as you can see here, there's a bit of a dent here, or a deep scratch, which doesn't bother me too much. Doesn't matter, because the wheels will be rolling on the side, not here. Otherwise I would probably contact Sunlu for a replacement, because I would have uneven movement of the bed. So that one doesn't matter too much, but usually you just need to make sure everything is squared. So make sure this gantry will be supporting the main vertical one. It needs to be very square to the one that is supporting the bed. So to check that, we just get a square, carpenter square. I only have this bigger one, but fits nicely here. Doesn't look to be uneven, but if it was, I just need to undo these bolts here at the base and make sure everything is aligned and moved up and down. That's not the case here, so everything needs to be pretty much squared, and we'll check on the other side, which is also not too bad. So I think I'm happy. I don't need to do any disassembly. Thanks, Sunlu. And now we're gonna take the package with the number 1, which will have the little bolts for the brackets. We're gonna just hand tie the bolts here on the inner side to let us do some adjustments in the vertical gantry itself. So just hand tied it so everything is in one piece, and you should have this part wobbly, and that is going to be necessary for us to square everything up. So as you can see, if you just tidy up without checking, you're going to have a very uneven gantry. So the easiest way would be having someone else to help you So as you would, you know, adjust the correct squareness of your main gantry, someone else would just tie the bolts on the middle. Since I'm doing this by myself, a little trick that I usually do is I get a piece of the zip tie and put here underneath the stepper motor. That would give enough leverage for us to, you know, tilt the gantry a little bit. So with the adjustment horizontally, forwards or backwards, it just tilts the gantry a little bit. So right now, put it there halfway, check with the square. I'm still a couple of millimeters out, as you can see here. So just need to slide the zip tie a little bit closer to the gantry. That will hopefully tilt it enough for me just to tighten the bolts. Check again, and that looks much better. I'm happy with that. I'm just going to tighten that up. We move on now to bag number 2, which will have the bolts from the underneath, and obviously it's easier if we just flip the bed over, or the print over. So nicely and easy, just have to tighten 2 bolts from each side of the gantry. And once more, check if everything is squared. Here at the bottom on the left hand side, you have all the electronics, the power supply, the power button, the connection lead, and a very important step: make sure your switch is flipped to the correct power supply that you're going to be plugging the machine. Don't take it for granted. Mine's already set to UK, which is 240, but make sure before you plug that into the main. Now we're going to need bag number 3 with the tie rod ends for the stabilizer bars. So it's pretty straightforward to assemble. Just use the locking nuts before tightening that to the end of the rods. And this bracket goes on top of the main gantry here, just facing forwards, and you're gonna need an Allen wrench just to tighten that up. Very straightforward. Now you're gonna be a little bit careful with the length, because obviously with these rods and the locking nuts, you can have a bit of a variable length. So you don't want it to be pushing or pulling the gantry out of the square that you've already established. So make sure it is in the correct length and use the locking nuts to maintain that. Obviously just check again with the square, make sure everything is as you set up previously. So that's pretty much it. Now here at the bottom you can see with the details how the bed is constructed. So you have insulation, which is very good for the size of the bed. You have the adjuster levelers in the 4 corners. You also have your X switch, make sure it's clicking and connected, and also you have the stepper motor for the bed itself. You can see you have 3 wheels on each side, and usually you want to make sure this doesn't have any wobbliness, which mine does a little bit. So I'm going to show you how to adjust. People usually say about tightening, but it's not about tightening, it's about adjusting that little nut in the single wheel. Hopefully you can see that. So usually you're going to take the 10mm wrench and just twist that, because it has a bit of a cam that will push the wheels up and down a little bit. So usually what you want to see, this wheel can spin free, this one doesn't, this one doesn't, and that one doesn't as well. So usually what you want is, no matter which wheel you want to spin, it pulls the bed. So clearly my top one here needs to be a little bit tighter. So I'm just going to be twisting that little adjuster, and hopefully whichever wheels that I try to spin will translate into some movement. So basically the top 2 wheels that you see in my video are not quite touching the rail. So check again, still spinning freely. A little bit more. And again, it's not about tightening that up, it's just about adjusting the correct angle. It could be one way or the other, it doesn't really matter. Still free. A little bit more. Since I'm doing it clockwise, I'll just carry on doing. It's usually better to just pick one direction. Now it looks alright. See, I moved this wheel, I moved the other one, and the bed moved itself. Make sure also you can move the bed with the belt, which is essentially what the stepper motor will be doing. Make sure everything is smooth, and once you flip it in the right direction, check if your bed is moving freely from one stop to the other. Don't do it very quickly, otherwise you can burn the stepper motors. And once again, see no wobbles. Here you see very loose as well. It's pretty much the same principle. So these top two doesn't have any adjusters, but the bottom one there does. So get your 10mm wrench again and just spin that out. Hopefully you'll be able to see a little bit better. There you go. It's a bit easier on the main extruder. See, that makes everything nice and tight. Now this printer has belt adjusters, so two here for the X. So I'm just going to tighten that up a little bit. My belt seems a little bit loose. It's very hard to gauge how much you need to tension this, but I usually just try to have a stiff enough, but not like a guitar string, just enough for the teeth not to skip in the extruder, on the motor, sorry. And then here on the y-axis, I usually just pull that and try to fit my finger. So this one seems a little bit too loose. I'm just gonna pull to the side and twist the knob a little bit. Try to add a little bit more tension, but it doesn't look too bad. I don't think you're gonna have any skipping teeth. Here in the back, you check you have a dual stepper motor for the X, so make sure everything is connected. The looms, you have two rods, which unfortunately they're not synchronized, but hopefully that shouldn't be a problem. You have also stabilizers. Everything looks squared and straight. I don't think I have any problems with my printer whatsoever. Here we have a metal extruder, very standard single gear extruder with a Bowden tube. Also feeds directly to the hot end. On the left hand side here you have your end stop switches and also your stepper motor. Make sure all the electric connections are good. You have also a filament run out sensor, and that's pretty much it. So to open up the hot end, you need to unscrew two bolts, one on each side of the shroud here. Not many surprises. And then you can see the usual 2020 fans, one radial, one axial. There's an LED there as well, but I don't think you can see much with this square shroud over it. You have the BL Touch knockoff, I guess, and also Mark 8 extruder, sorry, Mark 8 hot end here. Nothing very fancy, so you can probably upgrade that later. And the last bit that we're missing is the filament roll support, which is only secured by 3 bolts here. I'm not gonna be using, but it's pretty straightforward. You bolt that here, here, and here. I'm not gonna use this because I'm gonna feed that directly from the filament dryer. We'll check on that in a minute. Just check now for overall tidiness of your cables. Doesn't need to be anything fancy. You can print chains and guides for that later, but make sure nothing is gonna stay in the travel or gonna get pinched or anything. And last but not least, the power cord. It plugs here at the front like we saw, which I think it's very convenient. It goes underneath the bed like this, and the power button is right here as well, which is quite handy. You see, I've just powered the machine, and in idle it barely consumes 6 watts, so you're not going to break the bank just for leaving the printer on standby. So quick look into the menus. Press here for temperature settings. So I guess if you press in PLA, it gets the standard ones or whatever is in the printer memory. I have also the dryer box. Obviously I didn't connect that yet, so nothing that I can do right now. Leveling, motor, disabling motor. So yeah, the interface looks straightforward. The LCD touchscreen, it's quite responsive, and here's the firmware version. So yeah, nothing too fancy, but I think it does the trick. Need to get used to it to understand what is a button, what is not a button. So here, let's go for temperature. So if I press here on setting, I have a little keyboard that I can type in what temperatures I want. So for PLA, I'll go for the standard 200 degrees and see it warming up. Took me just about a minute to get to temperature on the nozzle, and here now the bed, we'll set that up to 60 degrees. Also nothing fancy, and because it is quite a large printing bed, it might take a while. I'm guessing about 3 to 5 minutes to warm it up. Now let's set up the filament dryer. It comes with the machine. It looks well constructed. There is a hole here, I think, for feeding the filament, or there in the bottom. But you see, there is no way to use that without the machine. You need to plug this plug that you have here only goes into the S9. So you need to plug this in. Very straightforward as well. And tighten this connection nut. And all the control is done via the printer interface. There are no buttons, there are nothing in the dryer itself, which is a shame, but anyway. I also noticed there's a little bit of a storage here. Right, so if we look into the interface, go back here, dryer box, now we have working temperature. There is also a humidity measurement, which is also quite interesting. You can press start and you can change your temperature and the time. To install the filament is quite straightforward. The dryer itself seems to take standard filament rolls. Here at the bottom, these rods, they don't have any bearings, but it doesn't look like you need it. And I think everything kind of gets warmed by this. There's a little piece here that I don't know exactly what it's supposed to do, but I'll leave that aside for now. But yeah, everything seems to be heated up by this plate at the bottom, and then you just need to pick which way you want to feed your filament. I'm gonna feed through the top lid, not here in this little hole. You see there's a little hole here where the lid matches the body. I'm just gonna feed that through the lid. That up and make sure everything's spinning, and then obviously you need to feed that through the runout sensor and then to the extruder. So now I am in my usual working temperature, so 200 degrees for the nozzle, 60 degrees for the bed, and the dryer is also working. So you can see I'm running about 75 watts, so you can do your math based on how much you pay for your electricity bills. Having a quick look here in the main menu, you have axis, for example, that just moves your bed to the positions that you would like. In increments, you pick it. I don't think we're gonna need this right now. We have leveling, which we're gonna cover later, and I think we're gonna use this now. Reload. So basically I'm already at temperature. I'm just gonna feed the filament into the runout sensor. It is quite loose there. I'll tighten up that bolt later, make sure everything is flat into the extruder. Make sure everything also is quite aligned, so you don't want tangles and things pulling or getting clogged. So pretty straightforward. Feed that through the extruder as you would do with normal Bolden, and then if you press feed, hopefully you will see that it's warming up a little bit. I think, yeah, if you go now, keep pressing feed, it's just 10 millimeters, so it's not gonna squirt a lot of filament, but pressing that, hopefully you see there at the top of the camera a bit of filament coming out of the nozzle. There you go, the head goes up and some filament comes out. One of the big advantages of this printer is the size, so 31 by 31 centimeters, and quite cheap price. So just for comparison, the normal Ender, which is 230 if I'm not wrong, it's quite a big chunk bigger in both directions, and obviously the height is also 400 millimeters. So now the last thing we need to do is level the bed, which is not quite intuitive. The interface is sometimes a little bit confusing. So if you press leveling, the printer will home. That's the first step. And make sure your leveling nuts, they're not fully extended or fully tightened. You need some headroom for it to adjust the height of the bed. And once it's homed, you're gonna see this grid here. Just ignore that for a second. You're gonna need now a piece of paper as usual, so you're going to place that piece of paper. You can press here home, but it doesn't really require that to happen. You're already homed from the previous step. So you place the piece of paper between the nozzle and the bed, and with the leveler knobs you're going to be bringing the bed up or down and making sure. So use this aux leveling, which basically just moves the nozzle around, and you can use that instead of just doing that manually. So go around the bed 2 or 3 times, make sure the paper is not too tight against the nozzle and the bed, just enough to glide a little bit. And once you've done 2 or 3 times, press auto leveling. That will trigger the probe process, which is going to set a 4x4 grid across the whole area of the bed. And that is just to adjust for minor imperfections. So I'm speeding that up a little bit. It's not that fast in real life. It takes about 2-3 minutes to complete the whole process, but that gives you that very nice first layer. So once this is finished, you will see the grid itself. So the numbers, I wouldn't bother too much with how big they are, but how different they are from each other. So if you look here at the corner, my biggest number is 0.149 and the lowest one is -152. So the delta between one and the other, usually I try to make it less than 0.2. So I'm gonna decrease this corner a little bit, increase the other one a little bit more on the other direction. Also lower this other corner here. A tiny little adjustment on the front again, and launch it one more time. So just press the measurement. And this now looks a little bit better. So you see the highest number I have and the lowest, they are within 0.2 millimeters from each other. Once you achieve that, just press home once more. And once it's homed, try squeezing the paper once more between the nozzle and the bed. And in my case here is a little bit too tight, too close, so I'm gonna use the Z offset, so up. There you go. I can fit that in between, not yet, sorry. So another couple of clicks up. It's too tight still. Or maybe it's just the paper that is, oh, there you go. So see, it's quite loose. So now we're gonna adjust the Z offset. So with the plus and minus, or the up and down arrow here, you're gonna be moving the nozzle closer to the bed or away from the bed. It depends. I usually like to keep the paper not too tight. So you see there, I think that is probably gonna be my sweet spot. So once it's done, you can start printing. So just go back, This printer comes with 8 GB SanDisk as micro SD card, which is quite unusual. They usually come with unbranded ones, so that's a good point from this. You don't need to buy new SD cards. And then just going back to the main menu, very straightforward, press on print, and you have the test prints there, but I'm not even bothering. I'm gonna print myself here, which I've already sliced. I'm gonna leave the auto leveling and the filament run out detection on, and press play or press yes. That's all the information. I'm just gonna set the bed here. I think I sliced that with 55. So yeah, you can change a few settings here on the screen as you wish. And it's gonna do the whole probing of the bed again, so I'm not gonna film that once more. Once it starts, just make sure the first layer is sticking. Otherwise, you can adjust your Z offset on that main screen as well, bringing it closer or away from the bed. But in my case here, it looks to be spot on, so I'm just let it carry on. This is a few hours later, so I'm printing this Apocalypse model from Wicked 3D. And as you can see, you can get some very nice quality prints out of this printer. It's not the fastest, it's not one of the new generation ones, I would call it, with all the bells and whistles. But yeah, if you tune that properly, you have some very decent quality prints now. So yeah, I'm using a 0.08mm height here, and the printer seems to take that very nicely. No surprises whatsoever. The adhesion looks very good in this mat. Usually, yes, it gets worn and everything else, but I think the first impression is that the adhesion is spot on. I don't think we're going to be struggling with anything, and obviously you can upgrade it by some new surfaces and everything else. I'm going to be making another video with my slicer profile. I did not find a ready to go profile for the S9 Plus, so I'm gonna show what is the trick that I did. And once more, this is a look on Wicked's 3D. I'll leave the link for this model in the description. It's a very stunning model, which I'm gonna print in 1/4 scale. Thanks for watching, see you next time.